So, hi guys. This is John Reed, a good friend of mine over the last few years. Hi, John. Uh,
Hello?
John is a folk musician. His main instrument is a crazy instrument which you won't see a lot of called a cittern, which I'm sure he'll show you at some point. Here we go.
It's
And
one of them.
he's beautiful. Look at that. It's got about 1 million strings. And
Uh,
okay, 1 million's an exaggeration. How many strings has it got, John?
It actually has 10 strings, Matt,
10.
as you know.
And how many fingers do you need?
About 45, I think. These ones are shredded now, so I need some more.
Yeah, you've been doing a lot of practice. What are you practicing for at the moment?
Um, I've got a number of gigs coming up, and I decided that this year for Penwitham Live, where I do a lot of, it's like live practice because they're free gigs and we do them for free. And because I've got 4 gigs in 2 nights, I've decided to do completely different gigs. So I've got four
Oh,
complete
that's
sets.
amazing. Okay,
It
I must
may be
admit,
amazing at the moment.
I would normally do the easy option there and do the same one each for the four different ones. You frozen? Are you still there?
Ah, have we frozen?
Ah, you're back. You're back.
Oh yeah. No, I was just going to say it's a great feeling because I want to air a lot of the songs. As you know, I've been prolific recently with songwriting for various reasons, but um, I want to air some of them to play them live to see if they hack it live. If they
Absolutely, yeah.
do well live, then I can build them into other sets.
Mm.
And
So
so far, it's
just
gone
just
well.
just give us a little flavour of describe your music style for anyone that hasn't heard you. What's your music about? What does it sound like?
Well, it's a lot of answers to that question, but I'll keep it simple. People call it protest music, and therefore they think I'm a communist, but I'm not. I'm actually somebody who hates the extremes of politics. I
Right.
think politics is dysfunctional, and therefore somewhere in the middle ground is where common sense lies and where we should all be. And so I guess that because I've become so angry at the state of politics, not just in this country, around the world, not just for the last few years, for probably about 30 years. I think I just got to a point where I thought I've had enough of this. And because I was getting so angry about it, I found the outlet in music, which came by accident. And so if you look at my music, it broadly, it would be called folk music, but it could be there's a number of songs that sound like traditional folk songs. There are others that sound more like progressive rock or
Hmm.
progressive folk.
Yeah.
One or two that drift into folk punk and things. And you know, I don't like to be put into genres because that's what the music industry wants.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. Yeah.
And so I do essentially what I want. And part of
Fabulous.
that has been driven by, as you know, the fabulous producer that we have, Ali Karim,
Oh, he's a star. Hey, Ali, if you
aka.
ever watch this, how
He
you
will.
doing?
I promise you, I'll sit him down and make him watch this. But he comes from a different background. His first part of his music life was more in indie and grunge, but latterly it's been more. It's hip hop, it's grime, it's stuff like that, and you can hear some of those influences in the music that I produce as well. So um, that's the short version of the
Fabulous.
answer to
I
your
think that gives
complex
that gives
question.
us that gives us a flavour. And the kind of one thing that's obvious about you is, with respect, you're no spring chicken, John.
No, I'm not, but I
You've
feel
really,
like
you've
one
really,
inside.
yes, you've really started writing, recording, and producing really quite late. How long have you been actually playing your instruments for? Is that a recent thing, or have you been playing for decades?
No, when I bought my first guitar at 15. Oh, my mum and dad bought me my first guitar at 15, should I say? Yeah, all right. um, and so that's 45 years.
Hmm,
I still feel 15 inside. You know, it's the myth about age that
absolutely, yeah.
your bones may creak a bit more, but actually it's an attitude of mind.
Hmm.
And so I've been playing since that time when I bought my first guitar. Um, and I've kind of built a collection since then without really doing much about it. And I've played the guitar, I've written lots of unrepeatable songs as a student, and then I started writing a lot of really nice tunes that were going nowhere. And so every so often I'd pick up the guitar and put it down again, then pick it up and play the same thing and put it down again. I used to drive Moira mad, and probably still do, but there you go.
And just for anyone who doesn't know, Moira is John's wife, not his dog or anything.
No, obviously. Yeah, but that's what and then I used to play the kids to sleep with different songs, one of which I now do live, and so it's kind of evolved. And then it was December 2013, I was going in for a panic Christmas present to Johnny Roadhouse Music up in Manchester.
Yep.
To get Duncan that's my son, some bouzouki strings. And as I was stood waiting for this guy to work out what bouzouki strings were, I saw this fabulous bouzouki on the wall, and I picked it off and I started playing it. I thought, this is amazing. A guy walked past, he said, that sounds really good. And I said, I've never played one before. It sounds great. And he said, it's a Cittern. Cittern spelt Cittern. But having gone out for a set of bouzouki strings as a last-minute Christmas present, I didn't want to come back with a 500 quid Cittern, which is the one I just showed you earlier. I waited 6 months and I saved up out of my business earnings. And I bought my first Cittern, and by November I was recording an album.
That's amazing. That's really good.
And
so
astonishing.
How do you find? I mean, I'm kind of middle ground. I mean, I'm similar in a way. I started recording, I think, when I was 39. So that's not young either. And I think I kind of missed out on the whole emo songwriting phase that most teenagers go through, and all that. How do you find that your experience has, and the fact that you're recording later on in life, how does that affect your music? Do you find that it affects your lyrics or the way you play, or just your outlook on the whole kind of industry as a whole?
I think the outlook on the industry is very cynical, but that's born not just of the experiences I've had over the last few years, but it's born more out of being a businessman. I'm an international trade consultant, and I've been running my own business for 17 years this year. And because of that, and traveling the world and seeing different people do different types of business in different ways, I get very cynical about the very large corporates, because in every single business sector there are a few dominant corporates and the rest of us are feeding on scraps. And it's always been that way in the music industry, but since streaming came on board, which is a fantastic thing, I do it myself, we all do it, it's killed the ability of musicians to earn a respectable amount of money that justifies the amount of effort that they put in. It's always been a poor man's game, but I had an opportunity to go into the music industry after I'd done several years putting on bands at Norwich University of East Anglia. I was stage manager there for the best part of 5 years. And that was at a great time. Punk had just started. I went to that university in 1976, and within months I was putting on punk bands. We went from Nazareth to the first Stiffs tour in about 3 weeks.
Hairy dog.
Absolutely incredible.
Oh, excellent.
And so I've been through all of that, and all of that has kind of shaped the way I look at life and music, because I believe life is quite simple. Life's about love, and it's about people being with people, not being apart from people. And so the collaborations that you and I have played together a number of times now, and we always come out with a huge smile on our face, don't we?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely.
And
you're right, that's what it's about.
You do with Cruel Sister, the Lewinskis. They came over from Canada a couple of years ago for the first time. What a dream that was. And it's re-engaged me with great friends in Blackpool, great friends from university, and introduced me to two of the most fabulous female vocalists you'll ever find, all in the same few years. And that's an incredible thing.
And I must actually say thank you on that point, because I think up till I met you and started working with you on a few things, a lot of the open mics I'd been to that I started off in and things like that, I'd met a lot of musicians, but they were all very driven by what they were going to do. And there was get on okay, but there's never really any kind of long-term connection there. And when we met up on Twitter, we immediately had a connection, and it wasn't just about I need to get my music done and you need to get your music done. It was we just really connected on what kind of music we enjoyed, which was lots of music, just a massive wide range. And the fact that when we got together, we just thoroughly enjoyed it and thoroughly enjoyed playing, and that really opened my eyes to the fact that it could be like that, because I didn't realize it could be like that. And we've almost got a family of musicians who feel the same way and think similar things and play similar-ish music, and when we get together, it is just a delight, isn't it?
It's brilliant. It's terrific. I think we came back from our gig at Chorley Library, and that was the one that really well, we knew then, didn't we, that we came away from that gig and we thought that was it. That was the one we can do that now.
Yeah, that
was really good. Felt like a real defining moment. It was terrific. But more widely, I've just talked to you about Russ Still and his song Monkey See, Monkey Do. He's recorded his own version on his latest album now, but that's a musician from Alabama. I didn't know you were connected with Russ Still.
Isn't that funny?
Until he'd asked me to put some music to this particular song, Monkey See, Monkey Do. And so I did, and I've literally just been playing it today before this, which is why I was a bit late for the interview, because I got carried away thinking, wow, I can do this. I can still do it. I've not played it for 6 months. And so there's Russ, and there's another lady I'm working with at the moment over in sort of southeast USA, who wanted somebody to put some music to some of her lyrics, because she's not a lyricist, she's not a singer. So I'm having a go at that. And then, you look at the Lewinsky's, you look at the guys at Sale Folk Club here, one or two of them are coming on board to work with me. Pete Robinson over from Hull as a percussionist. Other musicians. And I think what happens is that when you start something and it's clearly quite an open, not a closed book, then people who've got a similar mentality think, we can maybe have a conversation. I'm not saying it always works out, because sometimes you sit in a room with somebody for the first time and it feels like you're in a fridge.
Yes.
And it just stays that way. Yeah. And I've learned that through business. One of the things I learned through business is I went down to the same woodworking place in Walsall, but I must have been like 30 times, knocking on my regular route, and I'd knock on this guy's door and walk in, and I could never get through to him. One day I couldn't go because they sent me abroad, and somebody else walked in and got a sale on the first visit. And it wasn't because of all the work I'd done beforehand, it was because of a personal connection.
Right. Yeah,
and that's what makes the difference, particularly in music. It's really important to have that personal gelling, otherwise I don't think it works.
No, sure. No. I mean, I know your son Duncan Reid is a fabulous musician in his own right. Does it run in the family? Were your parents musical?
No, my mum, my grandma was a pianist. She was a really good pianist. She was my paternal grandma, but she spent all her time running a boarding house, so she never really got time.
Right.
We had a piano in my house early in life, but I was, I think my sister Anne, who's about 10 years older than me, she bought a guitar once, and I thought I'd like a guitar. And so my actual first guitar was a tin blue and white one. When I was about 10. And I never quite got to grips with that. But my very first one I was bought was a Spanish guitar.
Oh, right. Nice.
And even now it's better than a lot of Spanish guitars I played. And that must be, 45 years old. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
Brilliant. Here's a question for you. if no one listened to your music at all, would you still write your songs?
Probably, yeah, because I love playing.
Mm.
Uh, it's not so much. I do like writing. I think it's a good outlet, and it's enabled me to process a lot of the difficult things that are happening in the world today. You know, you've got to bear in mind that I'm pushing 20 years older than you. And so I actually lived through the whole of the period of the 3-day week in the 1970s. And I've seen the benefits as a businessman and as a person traveling around the world of being part of a community, a business community, a trading community.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've seen all of that. We've seen women's rights improve. We've seen racism decrease and all this kind of thing. And with a flick of a switch in 2016, it all came back. Now, you put yourself in that situation and put yourself in a position where you think, well, that's our life's work just been overturned. And that's what it felt like with the Brexit vote, with Donald Trump getting in, with Bolsonaro getting in Brazil, the far right getting in Italy, in Hungary, German far right starting to come back. And it just felt like I needed to say something.
Mm. I
So,
mean, and that is the feeling I get when I listen to your music. Is there's no sense of you're writing something, or you're recording it, or you're producing it in a particular style to appeal to anybody. You're
no.
writing it because that's what's in you, and that's what needs to come out. And
Yeah.
I find that very attractive when I'm listening to music. I think you can tell when something's done for a market, I think.
Yeah, you can.
And it kind of slides by me. Whereas
Yeah.
when someone's got some heart and soul in there, it's I find that
I
much more
think
attractive.
art has to mean something, and even if only one person came to a gig or one person bought a record, I'd think that's a great thing because um, it's people who truly appreciate music that I want on board. I don't want people patting me on the back or telling me how great I am. That just doesn't interest me. Celebrity, I find tedious, boring, and a complete distraction from life.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've walked past people in train stations and airports and said hello to them because I recognize them, because everybody's a human being. And then you suddenly think, oh, wow, that was Michael Meacher, the Labour MP, or that was, Graham Souness, or I'm not fazed by stuff like that. I never have been. And I think that's quite important. It's an important lesson of life, is that it doesn't matter how much money people have got, what position they're in, how many companies they own, how many cars or houses they've got. At the end of the day, they're going to die too. You know, we're all people, and we've got to get on. We're on this planet to get on with each other, and not to create these huge wedges that separate the rich from the poor.
And I think folk music has always had roots in that, really, hasn't it? I mean, where do you see the future of folk music? We've had an interesting period over the last decade, I'd say. In a way, you've had people like Mumford and Sons, which some people laugh at. I mean, personally, I really enjoy what they do, but they brought folk music back to be listened to by the mainstream.
Yeah,
and so no matter whether you like them or not, they did something remarkable there. And Rag and Bowman's done something similar with blues. He managed to get blues back into the charts and getting listened to by kids. I mean,
absolutely.
That's remarkable. I mean,
it is. Yeah.
I mean, where does folk music go from here, do you think?
I think folk music is currently under a revival, and there's a number of things that come from what you said. First of all, there's no place for snobbery in music. I'm sick to death of hearing people saying, no, that's crap, or that's great, or that's the best thing since sliced bread. It's a matter of taste. I don't like kale, but I eat it. And actually, when I eat it and it's cooked in a certain way, I quite like it. And music's exactly the same. It's for. I don't believe in purism in music. If I believed in purism in music, there was no way I'd have recorded the music I've recorded,
No.
because I would not have let Ali at his little sort of inflections of hip hop and stuff like that. But we get on, as you know, I mean, you've seen us at work.
Yeah.
He's half my age, and we get on tremendously well.
Yeah,
There's a
brilliant.
warmth there as well. And he's actually recorded a version of one of my songs, and I've been involved in some of his later stuff. So again, collaborations are key. But the answer to your question is that folk music is under a revival at the moment. And I believe that folk music, the purpose of folk music is to tell the story. If you look at history books over the years, as I have, because I've got a history degree for my sins, and I look back on some of those books now, I realize that they were politically skewed. A lot of folk music is telling a story about things that are happening to people. And therefore, there's less of a political skew in a lot of it. There is still, mine's politically skewed because of who I am. But
Sure.
a lot of folk music is telling the story of the day. And I think it's just like folklore and stories that come up from the past. There's the myths and there's the stuff you know to be true. The stuff that you can find in the ground about, the buildings and field patterns and stuff like that. And it's like an affirmation of life. So I think from here, it's got a very, very strong platform at the moment. There is a revival in it. Sort of middle ground in terms of talent and ability and all the rest of it. But there are some absolutely mind-blowing musicians out there, and I'm finding more and more of them through my Sunday Listen.
I mean, you do a lot of collaboration already. So, I mean, as you mentioned, the Lewinsky's wonderful from Canada, and you got Kieran and Co. and us lot, and we had Sam up, didn't we? Sam Jefferson, excellent folk blues musician, and plenty more. Who would you like to collaborate with? If you could pick 3 or 4 people, vaguely similar style to yourself, who would you go for?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Well, you'd be one of them.
No, we're going to. Well, we're going to be doing that anyway. That doesn't count.
Yeah, I know it doesn't count.
I mean,
I've never really.
Who do you listen to? Who do you look at their Twitter pages of? Who do you go to gigs of, and you think, God, they're really good. I said, but it'd be great if we could do something together.
Well, you think about. I went to see Seth Lakeman on Monday night. The whole family went, and
fabulous.
He has just started collaborating in the last couple of years with Robert Plant. Who'd have thought that would have happened?
Isn't that crazy?
So what it says to you is that whatever level you're at, it doesn't matter who you are. If somebody likes what you do and you have a USP that they need, then it can happen.
Yeah.
I've seen recently the Afro-Celt sound system back in November with brother Tom, who I'm also doing some work with. Tom, not the Afro-Celt. And on stage was a guy playing a sit-in, just like my files.
No way. Well, there we go.
And then I saw Lau last Wednesday evening up in Bury, and they were just sensational.
I was listening to them in the car yesterday, actually, because you lent me a CD of theirs.
Yeah. Seriously, if you get to see them live, it's not... The CDs, by comparison, are sort of middling. I mean, I love the music, really love it.
But they shine when they're live.
And that's what I really like, because you can't even get that across on a video. Live music is a special.
There's an electricity there, isn't there? And
and people who don't go to live music are missing. Everybody talks about experiences these days, but a real experience is go and see a band you've never seen live and go and see them before. I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about go down your local pub. Go and watch the kids play. Go and watch a girl sat there on her own with a guitar, terrified out of her wits because she's in front of 30 people. That is live music. And when they come out of that producing something that everybody applauds, and they mean to applaud because it's good, then it gives those kids the hugest confidence lift. It's all right for me and you. We've been there and stood up in front of places and talked people, talk rubbish to people, and
Absolutely.
we've played our music. But when you're new to this game, as I was just a few years ago, and I have a photograph which I will send to you, which is me sat there with my little cittern, and Ali stood over me, telling me what to do, and I looked like a frightened rabbit. And it's my first experience of recording anything.
Right.
And that photo sticks in my mind because it's how every person feels when, or they
Absolutely.
should feel when they get onto stage. Because if they don't feel that way, it doesn't mean enough.
Very interesting. Wow, deep. So, what's your favourite drink when you're gigging?
Ginger tea.
Ginger tea, brilliant.
Yeah, I normally just drink water, to be honest. If I were to, I'd love to be able to be in a position to have a drink.
But you're always driving, if you're anything like me.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's it.
It's funny, isn't it? Rock and roll life of a musician.
Yeah.
Drink tea and coffee all night.
It's curry at 1 o'clock in the morning at yours before I drive home.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, dear.
Yeah. Do you want a quick tour of the establishment while you're here?
Why not? Yes.
Yeah, I'm just going to loop this over here.
Am I going to get motion sickness?
Not much of. Over here is where I've just been rehearsing with my pile and over there in the corner.
Yeah, 2 citerns. Is it citerns or is it citerni or citerna?
I've never been asked that question before. And I could give you a really glib answer, but I really don't know.
We do.
But all of this has been built up in the last 3 years, really. This is still Jenny's bedroom when she comes home, my daughter Jenny. And so I have to clear things out of the way, but it's now become, the attic has become my rehearsing space. I'm about to launch a new website around Easter time.
Brilliant.
And before that, we're going to do, or I'm going to do a live solo, probably live streamed gig here with a few people. Just watching. And that's part of the website launch, where I'll be dragging songs from Moorscape, Drive the Life, the Madness EP, the Breeding Ground of Vile, a number of new songs. I actually do have 96 songs that I've not recorded.
That's crazy. I can't get my head around that at all. We're so different, aren't we? I mean, I write a song and then I record it and then I might move on to the next one. I never have a bunch of songs just hanging around. It's something I should probably try at some point. But if I like a song enough when I'm writing it, I just get on and record it, and then it's kind of done. But yeah, we work in different ways. It's interesting, isn't it?
I think it is, but I mean, I don't have the recording equipment. I could do, but it's not what interests me. Why do I need to record when 20 minutes from here I've got the best producer in the country? And I genuinely believe that. I think he's excellent. I don't need to, and we should be back jamming again in the next couple of weeks. And I've got a plan to record a couple of songs as well, so I might put out a small EP at some point.
So yeah, I mean, your last record was a double album, which is really rare these days. I mean, if you go, commercially, it's just not done anymore.
No, I know.
Because you don't really make much more. In fact, you probably make less money from a double record because you get the same people buying it. It costs more to make, and you could have done 2 separate records. So it really is an artistic endeavor if you go down that route. So you're going to be working on an EP next, do you think? Yeah,
I think so. I've got a number of projects on the go, and one of them I've talked about with you before, which is something that comes from the heart. It's about the experiences that my great-uncle Frank had. He was a stretcher bearer in northern France and Belgium for 4 years in the First World War. And this wasn't so much following on from what Sam was doing, because Sam did a similar project, which was stunning, absolutely fantastic work he did. And it was in my mind for a long time because we had a I transcribed a manuscript from Great Uncle Frank, and it's written in this sort of Scouse wit, and all these horrible things he's seeing and reporting on, and also the boredom, the sheer boredom of doing what they did. It came across, and it stuck with me for such a long time. I visited the war graves in northern France, and I felt I wanted to do something. And part of this collaboration thing was thinking, well, we've got a collaboration. I wonder if these guys would be interested in doing a song each on an EP. And so that is in process. It's stalled a little bit for various reasons, but I've not got a time scale on it, so it doesn't really matter. What I want to do more quickly than that is get some music out this year, even, 7-track EP, that's more personal, because as that Ali, when we were in the studio one day, and he said, you write about the Moors, you write about the environment, the ecology of the world, and politics and everything, but you never write about anything personal.
Oh, how interesting.
And so that night I went and wrote She Cried, or She Cries, and it's one of the songs
Lovely
I
song.
enjoy playing most, and that's one I want you to do some work on. Actually, I've perfected it now. I reckon I've got it really right for live, because when the girls come in on that song,
it's wonderful.
Emma and Kate, they really set it alight, and so that's something that I think we can all work on at some point soon.
Brilliant.
But that's one project. But a lot of it's about, I've written a song called Connector, which is about the area of Ireland called Connacht, which is the west of Ireland, where my ancestry.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, you're frozen again.
There you are. You moved.
Yeah, say that again.
Yeah, I'll say that again. My ancestry on my maternal side, mother's side, comes from the west of Ireland. And like many Irish people, they were driven over to live in Liverpool or Manchester, the northwest of England, because there was just no food, and we don't know poverty. I didn't grow up in a wealthy background, but I don't know the poverty that my mum knew. She didn't know the poverty that her mum knew.
Sure. And
so I wrote this song about, and it was partly in deference to Kieran as well, because he's been such a good mate to me over so many years. He never likes accolades, but he tells it as it is. He tells me as it is. He doesn't put up with any rubbish from me. If he thinks it's wrong, it's wrong, and he tells me, and that's a wonderful thing. But I wrote it with him in mind because A, he's an Irishman, I'm very proud of it, and B, he's a really good mate, and you know Kieran as well as I do now.
Of course he's
great chap.
Yeah, lovely.
So that's part of that, and there's a lot of personal songs like that that are going to start creeping in, and at the moment I have rather too many of them, and I need to try and bring them down to a workable format and not produce another double album.
I liked it. The length was good.
Well, I could have had 30 songs in that album. I ended up with 23 and an instrumental. It was written because I was getting so angry about the state of politics, and more than that, it's seeing people lying on the streets who could and should be in work. They're people who largely, and I did the Gigs for Crisis down in London at Christmas, and I was meeting people. I was expecting to meet winos and alcoholics, the usual sort of archetypal homeless person. Could have been me and you in there, Matt.
Really?
And there were, in some of these places, I did 7 gigs in 2 days. In some of the places, there were up to 150 people in there, and you could rarely separate those who were homeless from those who were volunteers.
How interesting.
It's staggering. And
well, that's definitely an area that's very dear to our hearts here as well. One of my chosen charities, apart from Ashmount Special School, is the Open Hands Compassion Centre in Leicester, that work with homeless people. So they call it a soup kitchen. There's no soup involved. They're actually sponsored by Pucker Pies, believe it or not. Pucker Pies deliver a whole oven of pies and things, and they make food as well on a Tuesday night and give it out. But they also give out furniture for people who've just managed to get into some housing from somewhere and they've got
Yeah.
nothing. They give out bags of sanitary products and smellies and deodorant and things and toothbrushes, and they've got clothes, and they're just a wonderful support. And they've kind of got support, not just the kind of physical stuff like that, but helping them. Where do you go next? Where should you be going to get this, that, and the other? And it's fabulous. So the gig at the end of the month in March 29th is in 6 Degrees Coffee Shop in Leicester, and all the profits from that coffee shop go towards that centre.
Excellent.
Which is why I've chosen that particular venue. So yes, I'm right with you on that one. I think it's shocking in this day and age that people, for whatever reason, are in that state.
One of the things that really, I went into a place, where was it, Bermondsey, and the guy on before me was this West Indian guy, and he was singing to a backing track, and he had a voice to die for. It was absolutely stunning, and I thought, I've got to go on after this guy. How do I go on after this guy? And we got talking. I was having a chat with him. We had a real laugh. He asked what my sit-in was, and I asked what he was up to in life and everything. And 2 years previously, he'd been on the streets. And this was a guy, and he was on the streets. And when people talk about desperation and having nothing, they mean having nothing. Mm. It's something that you and I can't get our heads around. But I had a really good chat with him, and then he had to go to his next gig, a bit like when we do gigs, we're sort of flying between each other, aren't we? And so I didn't stay in touch with him, unfortunately, but they're from all walks of life, and they're people just like you and I. And as you know, we're going down to do a radio. Well, it's not a radio; it's a quiz night we're doing for our radio friend Dave Roberts of Music Grown Up.
Brilliant.
And they're going to get a new song called "A Reason." I like to go down when I play for Dave. I like to play one completely new song that I've never played before live, and that's one of them.
World exclusive.
World exclusive, down somewhere near East Grinstead.
Brilliant. Okay, just one last thing then before we go. I know your thoughts on the music industry, and so where do you put your music? Where can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more about your music, more about you, if they want to have a chat with you? How can they do that?
Well, first of all, new website, which is using the current domain. It's johnreedmusic.com. Reed spelled R-E-E-D. johnreedmusic.com is undergoing an upgrade at the moment. There's a lot of work to do because I'm trying to include an element of what we've just been talking about. It's not just about the music. It's about collaboration. It's community. It's volunteering. It's all this kind of thing. We're human beings first and musicians second. So they'll be able to access my music through there or through johnreed.bandcamp.com, which is where you'd be directed to at the moment for music purchases or to listen to some of it. You can also find my videos via the music page. I'm starting to build up a catalogue on Vimeo, which I think is a much better platform, John Reed Music on Vimeo. It feels more professional than a lot of the YouTube stuff. But I've got a lot of stuff on YouTube, including me and you playing together in a church.
Quite a bit of that.
Where I believe you played Watergrove Farm for the second time in your life.
Oh, we've had some good times.
We have. It's been terrific, and it's going to continue to be terrific. It's been an absolute blessing to be a part of what you do as well. Because I shouted on one of your records and played a sit-in.
Yes, brilliantly too.
And I'll bring my Ashbury sit-in for you to loan again.
Oh, fabulous! Can't wait. And I love what you're saying. People first, musicians second. And it's an absolute pleasure playing with you. And thank you so much for letting me interview you.
It's a pleasure. I'm happy to be contacted by anybody and everybody. It really doesn't matter, and it's a big world out there, and we've got a big community to build.
Absolutely. Well, you're a fantastic gentleman. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Matt. Take care.
And cut.